Let's read the blue post here, guys. This is about Seasons of Mastery. There's apparently some content adjustments and some content changes and stuff like that. It just came out as well, like 14 minutes ago here. So we'll read this real fast, okay? Hello again. Now that we're wrapping up our beta testing phase, we want to follow up our design intentions, clarify some topics that have come up, and answer some questions that we've seen in the beta testers. Content adjustments. Only notable aspect of our content phases is decision to make the dungeon set, aka tier 2.5 quest lines, available at launch. Tier 3.5. We also adjusted the availability of many dungeons and reputation items, making them become more available earlier than they were in the original World of Warcraft. Oh, okay, so they're making that at launch. Okay, well, that's interesting. I guess it does make sense, though. If the game is supposed to be faster and stuff like that, that does make sense, right? Because it is like a one-year cycle, so like having that come out later, which is like a catch-up thing, would be weird to have later, right? Most of the changes and additions made to the loot boss table, reputation vendors, and other sources of gear were made later in original WoW to fill an obvious gap in viable late-game gear or resistance gear. It made sense with the accelerated content release cadence in Season of Mastery to move these changes up to Phase 1. Yeah, because they are like a catch-up mechanic, basically. Yeah, it's basically like just to make players catch up in the later phases, but since it's like a lot faster now, being a year, it's going to be a little bit different, right? This will provide more variety and value in the items available as players gear up for the late game content. This also provides more goals for players to pursue and gives many classes and specs more interesting gear options earlier on. Along these lines, we made the following adjustments to content that will be available during Phase 1 of Season of Mastery. Dire Maul will be available at launch. Okay, so Dire Maul at launch. That is interesting. I think a lot of private servers actually had Dire Maul at launch as well, and I don't know, I mean, for like this faster phases and stuff like that, I guess it sort of does make sense, but having Dire Maul at launch is a big thing. That's a big thing, because there's a lot of really good gold farms, especially the Hunter gold farm that are in Dire Maul, right? And also like a lot of the biz gears in Dire Maul as well, like the biz pre-biz and stuff like that. So yeah. Changes made to patch 1.10 to dungeons rewards will be placed at the launch of Season of Mastery. This includes the availability of idols, librams, and totems, as well as the adjusted drop locations and drop rates of some of the items such as the Hand of Justice and Blackrot Depths. Okay. I guess the Hand of Justice will drop from the last boss again as it made later, right? No, I mean, Dire Maul did come up pretty fast after Classic launch as well, so it does make sense for like the faster thing, right? Bosses drop runes instead of loot. Changes and additions made to the reputation vendors and drops in patch 1.6 and 11 will be in the place of this, with a few exceptions. Made in patch 1.10 to dungeon rewards. Wait, so this means that they're all like at launch, they're there? Like all the librams and the totems and everything like that, they will be at launch as well? Items on vendors that are associated with reputations that are not accessible until the later content patch, such as the Sandalar tribe. The world drop plans for Titanic Legends and Sageblade will be available in a later content phase. Okay, so no Titanic legs at the beginning, which is like the Biz Fury Warrior legs, basically. To facilitate the completion of the Dungeon 2 set questlines at the launch of Season of Mastery, the Twilight Hammer Camps and Silithus can be used to summon the Elemental Templars and Dukes. Yeah, so the tier like 0.5 set, which is a pretty decent set for a lot of classes, will be in the beginning of the game, right? Which is like, it's a really long quest chain which takes place partially in dungeons and also in Silithus and stuff like that. It's mainly a dungeon quest, right? And it gives some pretty freaking good loot, actually, especially being that it's out in Phase 1. To facilitate the completion of the... Okay, so the rest of Silithus will not be out, basically. Rogues will actually be Biz Phase 1 with this. Yeah, like, Rogue tier 0.5 is good. Like, people would use tier 0.5, like the Death Mantle set, pretty much over AQ gear. Like, almost. Like, some people would do that. Like, there was, like, a lot of Rogue, like, in the Rogue communities, like, should you use AQ 40 gear, or should you use tier 0.5? And there was actually a lot of people who chose tier 0.5 Death Mantle because of the set bonus, like the 4 set bonus with the energy proc, right? Which is pretty ridiculous that it's going to be at launch. That's a very strong thing, especially for rogues. Like, rogues are going to be bonkers, man. Holy cow. They're going to be insane. Jesus. Level 50 class quest will be available at launch. Okay, so that's like Diamond Flask, like all the Sunken Temple stuff, basically. That'll be on at launch. That does make sense, I guess. I don't know how I feel about the tier 0.5 being at launch, man. Tier 0.5 is really strong. Holy cow. The world PvP objectives in East of Plaguelands will be enabled at the launch of Season of Mastery. Okay, okay. Well, let's let's read the rest of this here, guys, and let's see what this is all about, okay? Classes are the lens through which we view World of Warcraft, and for many players, that our favorite class plays forms a large part of the memories we have of a particular era in World of Warcraft history. A big part of what makes WoW Classic special is being able to relive and remaster the gameplay of that bygones versions of WoW provided, and a large part of Classic WoW Project is bringing back the players to enjoy. We want players to recognize their classes, both their strengths and their limitations. And we don't want to create a situation where frequent balance changes are necessitated and leave players wondering what happened with their class from week to week. Well, that's the one thing about Classic WoW in a non-changed state, especially with the classes that, like, you know what every class does. You know, like, it's basically like a rock, paper, scissors, right? Like, rogues beat warrior, warrior beats nothing, you know, and stuff like that, right? That's how it goes. Bug fixes are always possible, of course, but broadly speaking, the classes that you know from Classic will be the classes you experienced again this season. So while some players are interested in seeing a version of Classic that has adjustment to the core toolkit, that is not our plan for this season. This season being the core thing. I really do think, and I said this earlier as well, I really think that, like, this whole season of Mastery, with these changes to the rates and everything like that, they're sort of like treading the waters to see what people would say about, like, Classic Plus, right? And then for, like, a future, like, season, they would probably change a lot more stuff, right? I would assume so. That's what I feel like. They're testing the waters to see how players will respond. And then, like, if players respond well, they will go, like, big dick, like, super in on it, right? And then we'll see, I guess. We've also heard the concerns about having increased health for raid bosses might further reduce the class diversity. This has especially focused on warriors and rogues being better on long fights. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, because they don't run out of mana. We're not insensitive to this concern, but our intention behind increasing the health of raid bosses is to make up for the better itemization and gear and improve talents provided by the 1.12 version of the items and classes. That does make sense. I do think, though, that it's more interesting having mechanics to deal with and, like, other things rather than just, like, oh, more health on boss, right? But it does, some bosses does need more health, right? But it is more interesting with the actual mechanics to deal with and stuff like that. Like, the Oni we did was amazing, right? We want to make sure players actually stay in combat long enough to engage with the boss mechanics, and we also believe that the changes made to the encounters might inspire new strategies for the raids. I really like the new encounters. I think they're fun. Like, they're fun. Oni is fun. Like, the raids are interesting and fun to do, I think. Based on what we saw in Molten Core and actual beta testing last week, groups that stacked warriors and rogues seems to struggle more than groups that had a greater diversity of classes. Basically, melee is kind of cocked a little bit, at least at the current iteration and the current, like, meta. Like, ranged is king at the moment. Range classes are king. There are a lot of variables, especially given the gear and the fact that people are experiencing the fights for the first time. That is very true. Once people get more used to it, you can just, like, cycle in more warriors and more damage and pump, right? That's it, basically. But it gave us hope that we were on the right track here. Keeping an eye on things, though, we are open to further adjustments if needed, if it turns out we're mistaking. Okay. Ultimately, it's not the goal for Season of Mastery to be specifically exclude any class or playstyle from any piece of raid content, and we expect that Season of Mastery raid content can be cleared with a very wide raid compositions. This doesn't mean that we expect every single spec to be fully represented on all levels of play, but we do hope that it all feels less familiar while moving at a different pace, with new problems to solve in order to overcome the challenge of the game. That does make sense. Well, the fact of the matter is that in Classic WoW and Vanilla, right, there is just some classes that are just bad in PvE, but they're good in PvP, right? They have their strong suits and they have their less strong suits, right? If they were, though, in the future Season of Mastery, if they were to go down a road of, like, really changing the classes, it would be fun. It would be interesting to seeing, like, new stuff like that. But that would be a very Classic Plus heavy thing, right? I think if you want to go down this route, this is a good way of doing it, right? Like, really testing the waters to see what people would do and stuff like that. I guess we'll have to see how it really goes, right? PvP honor systems. After careful consideration, we increase the rate of which players rank up in the PvP honor system. The system will largely behave as it did before. Ranking players will be given faction realm against the other faction, blah, 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 blah. After calculating your expected rank each week, you should move up 20% of the distance between your current rank and your expected rank. We're increasing it to 40%. Okay, so instead of rank 14, if you get bracket 1 rank 14, will take 13 weeks. So now it's gonna take 7 weeks instead. So that's like half, because you need 1 more week for one of them, right? If you get bracket 1. In WoW Classic, the #1 ranked player would have expected honor of 65k. recurring 12 weeks to reach the 16 to reach rank 14. Return and remain at rank 1 for all 12 weeks. In Seasonal Mastery, it's possible for a player to progress through those in 6 consecutive weeks. Yeah, so you can get rank 14 in 6 weeks now. 6 weeks for rank 14. That's still... I feel like it's going to be competitive. Because everybody thinks, oh, it's going to be fast, so there's going to be a lot more competition, right? And the more competition there is, the less bracket stacking there is. And the less bracket stacking there is, the longer it's going to take for everybody. It might be very, very competitive, right? Guys, you're assuming it takes 6 consecutive weeks if you get bracket 1 the most honor every week. That is what this is assuming. It's assuming you're getting bracket 1 every week, which means that you got the most honor. Okay? And trust me, when I was ranking, I was a rogue. World PvP ranking as a rogue, you would say, oh, Guzu, well, that's easy because you're a rogue. Bro, shamans literally doubled my honor. They could farm double what I could, man. They were crazy. It's gonna be very competitive, man. As in the WoW Classic and the original World of Warcraft, reaching rank 14 will be very difficult and competitive to path to take part in. It requires overcoming members of your own faction to be players contributing to each week. The difficulty of achieving Grand Marshal or High Warlord is highly variable depending on the participation of other players, so there's no guarantee that any player can achieve any given rank. True, we're just speeding up the match of the rest content. It does make sense. Like, why would you want a 14-week rank 14 on a 1-year cadence? Right? It makes no sense. So this, I like that they kept the spirit of the ranking, but just made it a little bit faster this makes sense. This does make sense. And honestly, like, the rank 14 grind is freaking ridiculous, man. Like, it's a stupid grind, man. It's dumb, man. Oh, God. As somebody who has done it, it is dumb. Finally, many classic players have asked what will happen at the end of Seasonal Mastery, and here's the answer. When Seasonal Mastery concludes, you will have the option to permanently transfer your character to the existing classic era realm in your region. The service is free and will become available for a limited time at the conclusion of the season. While we don't know the exact destination realm of the specific date, you'll have plenty of time to move your characters to a safe home before all of Seasonal Mastery realms are permanently closed. Thank you so much for all your comments, report, and feedback. We had a blast on the beta testers the past few weeks, and we're excited to join you on the Seasonal Mastery on November the 6th. The WoW Classic
Thank you for your patronage.
There it is.
Just means you'll be able to bully Swifty off the server faster.
True. I don't think I'm ranking, guys, but I think I'm not a big fan of the tier 0.5 being in the game at release, because it's gonna make a lot of other gear obsolete, especially for rogues. I don't know much about other classes, but for rogues, it's gonna be pretty heavy. Diamol at release, I understand why, honestly. I get why they're doing it. Diamol does change a lot, though, with gold farms and stuff like that, but basically the Biz gold farm will be out at release of the game. The Biz gold farm for the entire game. Like Diamol East jump runs and the Hunter like farming in Tribute, right? So that's interesting. I understand the PvP thing. All in all, man, like I feel like it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen whenever they conclude the Seasonal Mastery, the first season here, and then see what's gonna happen in the next one, right? If they're actually gonna go down a road of like making more raids, like Scholar Crusade raid, Hygiel, Emerald Dream, stuff like that, like changing the classes, right? There's lots of things you could really do. As old school RuneScape have done as well, right? And maybe hardcore support, hardcore servers, that will be interesting too, right? We'll have to see, guys, but I think it's nice actually getting some some feedback from it, like understanding what they're doing with it, right? And I think that's kind of cool at the end of the day. Why do they nerf rogue farming to shit but keep hunter farming? Fuck that. Well, it's I can't really answer you, man. It's yeah. I do wonder if they're gonna do something about the Diamol Hunter farm. I'm not sure. I think some private servers did do something about it, but we'll have to see, right? It is still pretty shitty that a lot of rogue players have their like pickpocket farm nerfed, right? But I guess we'll see, man. It's like to counter the bots, I guess, right? But there it is, guys. That's the Bluepost. Blizzard just released the Bluepost, so yeah, man. There it is. There it is, man. That is interesting. It's gonna be quite something with this Seasonal Mastery. I will be playing hardcore, obviously, in the beginning. So I might be a little bit late to the club when it comes to actual like the leveling and stuff like that. But we'll have to see how it goes, right?